Hey, welcome back to Fixing It Blind. Apologize about the wind, but we're working outside today. So what we got to replace the friction wheel on this here Toro snowblower. It's going to be similar on a bunch of different models, but the part number for this specific one is a Toro, this is from Bill's place anyway, 37-6570. First thing we got to do is we got to remove this cover. Almost everything on this machine is going to be standard. If you use metric, you can strip out some of the bolts, and so it's just better to use standard. There's 4 bolts, 2 down here, 2 up top. Pull this cover out of the way, and the wheel we're after is right in here. So we are going to have to remove the wheels. These little flip up pins, safety pins, and then the wheels slide off. And we will be putting a protectant on these axles. The protectant that we're going to use is called Strike Hold. Okay, it's a cleaner and a lubricant. It is a dry lubricant, but it's also an anti-corrosion. The military uses this on their firearms. It works really good as a cleaner and a lubricant. Now, you don't use this in place of grease. Like, we won't put it on the gears and such, because you need that heavier grease. But this will work great on these rusty shafts. So you can see how rusty this is, and what we do, we just mist a little bit on. It doesn't take much. And what's nice about this is, as a penetrating oil and as a protectant, it's also a cleaner as well. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and spray the pin down just to stop it from rusting as well. And if you guys decide, I'll put a link to this in the description down there. If you guys decide to use this stuff, get it in the trigger spray bottle. I mean, the aerosol is nice because it can shoot farther, but it's really hard to regulate how much comes out. And this stuff's not cheap, but it is worth its weight in gold. Way better than any WD-40 or fluid film or anything like that. All right, to remove this, we're gonna put a wrench on here on this nut. And then we're also gonna put a wrench on this shaft. You can see the shaft is hexagonal. So that's gonna help us to remove that nut so we can slide it out of the... All right, a 16mm wrench seems to fit on there pretty well. Basically what we're doing is we're taking the nut off that holds the hub that holds that friction wheel off. Now it is a nylon lock nut, so it doesn't get easy till the very end. But it kind of has to because the vibrations that this thing takes. Now basically the problem we're solving is this thing does not like to drive forward or reverse very well. Like, you can just hold the handles and stop the wheels. And basically what's happening is the rubber on this wheel is worn flat. Well, I mean, this one is a flat one, but it's worn to the point where it's a smaller diameter and the rubber is harder, so it doesn't grip this plate like it should. So now we just slide this off and pull this hub out. So here's the old one. And we're going to take it off this hub. Here's the new one. Again, I bought this online from a place called Bill's Place. Small engine parts supplier. And what you'll notice is you see how the thickness in this rubber. This one's got more rubber on it. It's actually, you can see how much it's worn down. That's a good solid 1/4 inch. So we're going to go ahead and switch these over. Let me get you guys so you can see what I'm doing here. So these are 3/8 bolts. I use an impact. I use these swivel sockets. They are fantastic. Now, things that we have to pay attention to, right, is how this is oriented. We don't want to accidentally put the new wheel on backwards, because it'll go right on. And we don't want the hub going in through the center, right? Because on this model, it needs to be this way. So we take the old wheel off, you grab the new one, grab our screws, get them started. Kind of snug each one up so it sits nice and flush. Now hold it and just and tighten them down. Now you see how there's this notch here in this wheel. We need to make sure that that key stayed on the shaft, and if it did not, we got to put it back in. In this case, the key is, and the key is facing straight backwards. Get you guys back in there. We switch what side you're on. Hopefully the shadows aren't in your way no more. So the hub portion was pointed out this way, and the bolts that hold the wheel on were pointed towards the axle. So we want to flip it flat, tip it up, get it in there. And actually, you know what we want to do? We want to lubricate this as well, just to make sure that that doesn't rub, but we don't want any of this on the wheel. Okay, so we're just going to do the inside of the hub. There we go. Yeah, it moves with the shaft. We need to grab our nut. You see how it's got the nylon portion and then the steel portion? The nylon portion always faces the outside. All right, snug her up, make sure she's good and tight. And then we're gonna get some emery cloth and scuff up this plate a little bit for a little bit better traction. Now this is just some fine emery cloth. You can use sandpaper if you want. I don't know, like a 120 or a 220 grit. And basically all we're doing is just kind of cleaning it up a little bit. Don't have to be perfect. We just want to get some of the surface rust off of there and the rubber buildup from the years of that other wheel wearing down. And I don't know if you can see the difference here where I scuffed it up and then where it's smooth and shiny. So we want to get that area as well. It's going to help with traction, so it grabs this rubber better and prevents slipping. So now we're going to look in here and see if there's any grease certs that we need to grease up. Does not appear that any of this is greasable. All right, so now what we want to do is we want to make sure that when we engage this, it grips that plate. So you can see how she grips, but doesn't grip super tight. So there's a couple adjustments that we can adjust. We're gonna start off with this one up here. An 11 mil seems to fit good. And we're gonna move this other nut up. Basically we want it so that the lever sits all the way down and it just barely touches the spring. Okay, so we're gonna squeeze the lever and then grab the wheel. See, now we can't spin the wheel by hand. And you see how it grabs right here, a little bit of play, and then it compresses that spring. That's what we want. And so every time you change this wheel, since different manufacturers are going to be slightly different diameters and different compounds, you know, some might require more or less or whatever. So you want to adjust this. And then make sure you snug it back up, because you don't need it coming loose. Okay, so she's good to go. You can see we got a little bit of slack, so it's not constantly dragging. When we pull it, it makes great contact. When we release it, it free spins. So now we're gonna finish putting her back together. We're gonna pop these wheels on. They should go on a lot nicer than they came off, just because that lubricant. Oh yeah, they slide right on. Now if you look at the tires, you see how this side's got the stem that sticks out farther, and this side's got the shorter one, and plus the air valve is on the outside. So we want the air valve always on the outside. Hopefully you can see here, there's the outside hole. We line the outside hole up with the wheel, and then we put our pin in. Kind of wiggle the wheel around till we get the pin all the way through, flip it over. That's not gonna come loose. Then we're gonna hit these little holes here with this strike gold, and that'll kind of help stop the bolts from seizing in, right? Because that's all this thing does is runs in wet, salty climates, right? So do not tighten all these down one at a time, right? Get them all started and loose. That way you can adjust the plate to cover, because it's just steel. Like, it's just, and it gets all bent out of whack. And all right, then go ahead and send her home. There you go, she's good to go. So now we'll test her out. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and turn the fuel on. Let's make sure it's got some gas in it. Yep, it does. Good, we're gonna see. Primer a few times. Now hopefully you guys saw that it would spin the tires on the concrete. It would just keep spinning and spinning and spinning. That's a good sign that it's getting good traction on there. She's good to go. Now save yourself, you know, 80 to 150 bucks from bringing it to a shop and do it yourself. Super simple. It took like 26 minutes total to do this, and that's with me doing a video on it as well. It's a lot quicker if you don't have to sit here and film and try to change angles and stuff. So anyway, you guys enjoy. Thank you.